This story just exploded. Candace Owens, known for her sharp commentary and fearless delivery, has finally broken her silence about being subpoenaed in the ongoing defamation case tied to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's messy courtroom showdown, and her response, it's nothing short of wild. In an era where cancel culture and legal threats are thrown around like confetti, Owens has flipped the script, calling out what she sees as a politically motivated attempt to silence creators and critics alike. But that's not all. Just as her fiery reactions sent shockwaves through the creator community, Blake Lively appears to be doubling down, digging herself even deeper into a PR nightmare that keeps evolving in real time. Sources inside the courtroom and PR industry are now describing Blake's legal maneuvers as desperate, tone-deaf, and possibly damaging to her long-term credibility. And the online world, it's exploding with reactions, with fans, influencers, and legal analysts all weighing in on what could be a defining moment for creator rights and celebrity accountability. What began as a legal battle is now something much bigger, a cultural moment, a reckoning, a high-stakes chess match in the court of law and public opinion. So how did we get here? What did Candace actually say, and why is Blake's next move being described as the biggest gamble of her career? Buckle up, because this isn't just a story. This is the collapse of a carefully crafted Hollywood image in real time. Candace Owens isn't someone who backs down from a fight. Her entire public persona is built on confronting controversial topics head-on, regardless of the fallout. So, when she found herself entangled in the highly publicized legal war between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, specifically as a subpoenaed content creator, many speculated she'd either fight back hard or remain strategically silent. But on a brisk Tuesday morning, she made her position crystal clear. Owens took to her podcast and social platforms in a blistering, articulate monologue that not only addressed the subpoena, but also torched the broader implications of Hollywood's attempt to control online narratives. With the tone of someone unshaken by legal threats, she accused Lively's legal team of trying to criminalize criticism and suppress commentary that was already public, citing the First Amendment and the growing trend of celebrities using the courts to silence dissent. This isn't about defamation, Owens declared. This is about domination. It's about using wealth and legal firepower to terrify people into silence. And I won't be part of that game. She didn't stop there. Owens went on to question the selective nature of the subpoenas issued by Team Lively, implying that certain creators, especially those with conservative or contrarian viewpoints, were being targeted disproportionately. They didn't go after mainstream outlets, she noted. They went after voices they thought wouldn't fight back. Big mistake. The response was immediate. Hashtags like hashtag Candace Owens unsubpoenaed, hashtag free speech under fire, and hashtag Blake per fail trended within hours. Owens' name shot to the top of Twitter, X, TikTok, and YouTube commentaries as creators across political lines rallied behind the notion that something bigger was at stake here. Interestingly, some of the most vocal support came from unexpected corners, including creators who disagreed with Owens on nearly every political issue. Their common ground fear that if Owens could be dragged into court for her commentary, anyone could. Within 24 hours of her response, Owens released an extended video breakdown where she dissected the timeline of events that led to her subpoena. She showed screen recordings, cited timestamps, and laid out her argument that everything she'd discussed in her original video was sourced from public court documents and mainstream media outlets. Her defense wasn't just emotional, it was methodical. Legal analysts took note. Several prominent attorneys commented that Owens' rebuttal was well-structured, legally sound, and likely protected under fair comment doctrine, especially if her remarks were based on publicly accessible information. Some even went so far as to suggest that if Lively's team pushed the matter further, they could risk a countersuit on grounds of malicious prosecution or an anti-SLAPP motion. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's team remained publicly silent. No statement, no clarification, and most notably no retraction. But insiders claimed the damage control meetings behind the scenes were intense. Multiple PR professionals with ties to high-profile clients began circulating memos, urging celebrities to avoid legal action against creators unless absolutely necessary, warning that the blowback could be far worse than the original criticism. At the same time, Owens' reaction reignited scrutiny on the original case between Lively and Baldoni. Questions resurfaced about why Lively had been so aggressive in issuing subpoenas in the first place, especially toward creators who merely reported on court developments or expressed opinions based on legal filings. Owens took this opportunity to highlight the growing chasm between Hollywood elites and the digital creator class. This is the new war, she said. It's not left versus right. It's not even celebrity versus civilian. It's legacy control. versus online truth-telling, and I'm not afraid of them, the quote caught fire. Clips from her statement were repackaged into reaction videos, short-form TikToks, YouTube deep dives, and even late-night discussion panels. Owens' narrative became a rallying point not just for her fans, but for anyone skeptical of the way public figures have attempted to police social media discourse. And whether people loved or hated her, the consensus was clear: her response shifted the narrative. For Blake Lively, that shift was seismic and not in her favor. Comment sections on her brand partnerships and Instagram posts were now flooded with criticism. Phrases like censorship queen, defamation diva, and PR meltdown incoming replaced the usual hearts and flame emojis. Her team scrambled to do damage control, but instead of addressing Owens directly or clarifying the scope of the subpoena, insiders claimed they instructed brand reps and social media managers to limit comment visibility and turn off tags on newer posts. A digital retreat that many interpreted as an admission of guilt or at the very least poor planning. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's camp watched all of this unfold in silence, but not without strategy. Legal insiders now speculate that Baldoni's team may use Owens' statements as part of a broader pattern to show that Lively's legal tactics were overly aggressive and potentially suppressive. If they can frame her as someone attempting to chill speech, it may influence how the court views the entire defamation framework of the case. And Candace, she's not done. In her latest post, she teased a new investigative series into the broader trend of Hollywood lawsuits targeting creators, promising receipts, names, and timelines. She framed it not just as personal vindication, but as a mission to expose how power is wielded in entertainment law. It's clear that this story isn't just about two celebrities in court anymore. It's about the future of commentary, creator rights, and public discourse. And thanks to Candace Owens' explosive response, the conversation has taken on a life of its own. The moment Candace Owens' defiant response hit the internet, the ripple effect across media was instant. But what followed next was nothing short of a full-blown media tornado, and at the center of it, Blake Lively found herself spinning, with no clear path to recovery. Almost immediately after Owens' video began trending, mainstream media outlets picked up the story. Some framed it as another example of creators pushing back against Hollywood's control over digital narratives. Others focused more pointedly on Blake's legal choices, questioning why her team chose to involve high-profile commentators like Candace in the first place. The headlines were brutal: Blake Lively's PR strategy backfires, Candace Owens turns the tables, and Hollywood's defamation game just got exposed. And it wasn't just the media. Prominent YouTubers, streamers, legal experts, and podcast hosts began dissecting every angle of the subpoena drama. Within 48 hours, over 200 reaction videos had surfaced. Some were fully supportive of Candace Owens, praising her strength and calling out what she labeled elitist silencing. Others, even those normally neutral on celebrity gossip, expressed alarm at what they viewed as an overreach from Lively's legal camp. The most devastating blow to Blake's PR image didn't come from traditional critics. It came from her own fanbase. Longtime supporters began raising questions across Reddit, Threads, Instagram comments, and TikTok duets. The tone shifted rapidly from admiration to skepticism. Why go after creators if you have nothing to hide? This makes her look guilty, not strong. Blake used to feel so relatable, now she feels untouchable. These weren't trolls, these were the same fans who had once celebrated her every red carpet look and championed her Hollywood comeback. Even brand partners began taking quiet steps back. A fragrance campaign that was set to launch later that month was quietly postponed. A lifestyle brand that had recently signed Blake for a high-profile collaboration suddenly scrubbed her name from their homepage. While no official reasons were given, the timing couldn't be ignored. The PR dominoes were falling fast. Behind closed doors, insiders reported rising tension within Lively's legal and media teams. There were conflicting strategies. One camp reportedly wanted to immediately issue a clarification, not necessarily an apology, but a carefully crafted explanation to minimize damage. The other insisted on holding firm, believing any concession would signal weakness and give more power to critics like Owens. The result: paralysis. And that hesitation only allowed the public conversation to spiral further out of their control. Meanwhile, Candace Owens continued her momentum. She didn't need to push the story anymore. The internet was doing it for her. But she still delivered subtle jabs, releasing additional commentary and teasing that she had more evidence of Hollywood's attempts to silence online truth-tellers. While her tone was fiery, her messaging was methodical. Each post, each statement seemed designed to remind viewers that the real issue wasn't personal, it was systemic. It wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had ever used their platform to speak up and felt threatened for it. That framing hit hard with digital creators of all sizes, mid-tier YouTubers with 5K followers to major podcast personalities, with millions of downloads began releasing their own stories of intimidation, legal threats, or brand pressure. Some even hinted that they had been approached, not necessarily subpoenaed, by legal teams. In past celebrity scandals, a pattern was beginning to emerge, and Blake Lively had unintentionally placed herself at the center of it. This wasn't just a legal misstep, this was a PR nightmare with no easy exit. In an attempt to shift focus, Blake's team allegedly leaked positive stories to media outlets. Everything from her charitable work to behind-the-scenes footage from an upcoming film. But the internet wasn't buying it. Users in comment sections dismissed these stories as PR distractions and damage control fluff. The sentiment had changed. The audience was no longer in love, they were on alert. And then came the worst twist of all, an internal leak. A screenshot allegedly from a private PR chat associated with Lively's team was shared online. In it, someone whose identity remains unconfirmed appears to describe Candace Owens as a liability to be silenced. Whether the screenshot was real or a convincing fake didn't matter. The damage was done, the internet ran with it. The perception that Blake's team had intended to intimidate creators and not just seek legal recourse was now cemented in the public consciousness. Legal experts began pointing out that this was no longer just a PR crisis. It was also a potentially strategic disaster. If opposing lawyers could demonstrate that the legal actions were aimed more at suppressing criticism than correcting falsehoods, it could redefine how the defamation case is interpreted in court. Public reaction turned sharper still. Even celebrities who had largely stayed quiet began liking, reposting, or subtly referencing the drama. A list names didn't issue statements, but they didn't have to. A like on a creator's TikTok, a cryptic tweet about truth always coming out, a removed follow on Instagram. These little digital breadcrumbs added up, and fans noticed every one. At the heart of this chaos, Blake Lively remained silent. She didn't release a statement, she didn't address the Owens controversy. She didn't even show up for scheduled public appearances, prompting further speculation about internal panic. While some fans defended her privacy, others demanded transparency. This silence feels strategic, one tweet read, and it's only making it worse. Candace Owens, on the other hand, was everywhere. Whether you liked her or not, her presence was undeniable. She was being interviewed, invited on panels, and quoted by major platforms. Not only had she refused to be silenced, she had grown more powerful in the face of the attempt. What should have been a quiet legal notice had evolved into a cultural power shift, and Blake, she seemed to be sinking deeper by the hour. This wasn't just a bad week for her reputation, it was a cautionary tale unfolding in real time. A case study in what happens when old-school PR tactics collide with the chaos and transparency of the modern internet. In an era where every action is screen-recorded, every silence is interpreted, and every story has 100 versions, trying to control the narrative with legal threats is like trying to put out a wildfire with gasoline. By the end of the week, what began as a single subpoena had turned into a media reckoning. Blake Lively had hoped to silence her critics. Instead, she gave them the biggest microphone they'd ever had. The Hollywood response to this lawsuit has been nothing short of chilling, especially for Blake Lively. What began as a legal maneuver to protect her image has become a public unraveling of trust, loyalty, and perception. As Candace Owens continues to stand firm with bold public statements, Lively's inner circle has started to fracture. Her usual allies, those who have always supported her on red carpets and social platforms, are now noticeably silent, and in the world of celebrity, silence is often louder than words. Insiders are reporting that some of Blake's closest Hollywood confidants have quietly distanced themselves from the legal fray, choosing not to comment on the defamation case or the subpoenas targeting creators like Owens. Even within her publicists' inner strategy group, there appears to be disagreement. Some argue that the lawsuit has now caused more damage than the original commentary ever could. Others believe it was the only way to draw a hard line against what they describe as a growing culture of celebrity defamation masquerading as commentary. But the problem is deeper than just internal division. Public perception is shifting rapidly. Critics argue that Blake Lively has fallen into a PR trap of her own making, one where every legal step she takes is seen as an attempt to control the media, rather than simply protecting her name. Instead of coming across as strong or principled, her legal aggression is being framed as overly sensitive, litigious, and desperate. Candace Owens, sensing this shift, has masterfully seized the moment. She's not just reacting, she's actively steering the conversation. In one recent podcast appearance, Owens questioned whether this lawsuit was even about defamation at all or simply about silencing dissent. We have to ask, she said, why now? Why target content creators when Hollywood has PR firms that spin narratives for a living? This is about control, not truth. That clip alone garnered millions of views within hours, further amplifying Owens' position as a defender of open discourse in a climate of increasing suppression. At the heart of the lawsuit is a question that's now being echoed by the public. What is fair commentary, and when does it cross the line into defamation? Candace Owens insists that her commentary was based on publicly available information and that her questions, while pointed, were not malicious. Her legal team is building a robust defense that leans heavily on First Amendment protections. They're framing this not just as a personal attack against Owens, but as a broader threat to commentary platforms across the board. Blake's team, however, has remained adamant that Owens' remarks were not simple commentary but a coordinated attack, meant to damage her reputation during an already delicate legal battle involving Justin Baldoni. They argue that Owens' statements were filled with innuendo and speculation that went far beyond the bounds of fair comment. The tone, they say, was suggestive of wrongdoing without evidence, something that, when repeated by millions, can cause irreversible harm. Yet as the lawsuit continues to unfold, more and more observers are starting to question the wisdom of going after someone as media-savvy and combative as Candace Owens. The lawsuit, rather than intimidating her into silence, has given her a new platform to criticize Hollywood hypocrisy. She's found support not only from her conservative base but also from centrist and independent commentators who are alarmed at the idea of lawsuits being used to chill free speech. This has also triggered a ripple effect among other creators and influencers who once hesitated to speak on celebrity controversies. Seeing Owens stand tall against a major Hollywood figure has emboldened a new wave of digital voices. Across YouTube, podcasts, TikTok, and Substack, creators are discussing the case, not just as a legal story but as a moment of cultural reckoning, a battle between elite celebrity control and the democratization of media narratives. Meanwhile, Blake Lively's PR team has tried desperately to recalibrate. Quiet background briefings to selected entertainment journalists have attempted to reframe the narrative, portraying Lively as a victim of online toxicity who is simply standing up for herself. However, those efforts have struggled to gain traction. Audiences aren't responding to polished statements, they're watching viral clips, live commentary, and emotionally raw reactions in real time. And in that arena, Owens is winning. Perhaps the most telling development came when Blake's longtime friends Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift declined to comment when asked about the lawsuit during press events. The lack of a defense from such prominent allies has sparked intense speculation. Are they supportive privately but hesitant to get involved publicly? Or have they recognized the damage and are choosing to remain neutral to protect their own brands? The tabloids have been quick to jump on this vacuum of support. Several outlets have run pieces with anonymous quotes suggesting that some in Blake's circle feel the lawsuit escalated the situation unnecessarily and that a more measured response could have avoided the PR nightmare. Though unnamed, these insiders paint a picture of growing internal frustration and unease. All of this is unfolding in an environment where public opinion is increasingly skeptical of celebrity efforts to control narrative. The traditional approach: issue a legal threat, release a publicist-crafted statement. Silence critics no longer works the way it once did. The internet is too fast, too loud, and too interested in real-time transparency. Once the public senses a cover-up or suppression, the blowback can be even more brutal than the original controversy. Candace Owens, more than anyone, understands that new reality. She's turned her rebuttals into full-blown content series dissecting the legal filings, pointing out inconsistencies and calling attention to every strategic mistake made by Blake's legal team. It's not just about defending herself, it's about showing her audience how celebrity power is wielded and what happens when someone dares to push back. In one particularly fiery video, Owens addressed the subpoena issued to her as if it were a badge of honor. When powerful people try to silence you, she said, it means you've touched a nerve. And I'm not going anywhere. That video alone was clipped, shared, and analyzed by dozens of prominent commentators, only reinforcing her positioning as the underdog with a megaphone. At the same time, her legal team has begun engaging with high-profile civil rights lawyers and free speech advocates, potentially signaling that Owens plans to fight this case not just in court but in the court of public opinion. The longer this stretches out, the more likely it is that this case becomes a cultural flashpoint, one that draws attention far beyond the original claims of defamation. Blake Lively, despite her massive popularity and Hollywood clout, now finds herself at a crossroads. The more aggressive her legal strategy becomes, the more she's accused of overreach. And the more she retreats from the public eye, the more people speculate that she's losing control of the narrative altogether. This moment is no longer just about one lawsuit. It's about what happens when a cultural commentator like Candace Owens goes head-to-head with a Hollywood powerhouse and neither side is willing to blink first. As the days rolled on, Candace Owens didn't just maintain her stance, she escalated it. In a fiery follow-up episode, Owens laid out a timeline of what she called coordinated smear tactics, originating from Blake Lively's camp. According to Owens, this wasn't about defamation at all. This was about silencing criticism, muzzling dissent, and using the legal system as a weapon against independent voices who challenge celebrity narratives. She cited a string of subpoenas, takedown requests, and behind-the-scenes outreach to social media platforms that reportedly involved Blake's legal team and PR handlers. "If you think you're just watching a defamation case," Owens said, "you're actually witnessing a campaign to control speech, and I won't be part of that silence." That message struck a chord. Clips of her comments were shared millions of times across X, TikTok, and YouTube. And what started as an isolated media story soon snowballed into a wider cultural debate. Is Hollywood trying to control independent commentary? Is this lawsuit really about truth or about control? Meanwhile, things on Blake Lively's end were far from calm. Sources close to her PR operation described growing internal tension. Leaks began to emerge that not everyone on her team supported the lawsuit strategy, especially after seeing the public backlash. One insider reportedly told a journalist the idea was to shut things down, not blow things up even more, and blow up it did. Several mainstream media outlets, including the Daily Beast and Variety, began publishing op-eds questioning the wisdom of Blake's aggressive legal moves. Some headlines included phrases like "Blake Lively's legal misstep" and "the celebrity lawsuit that's backfiring." Even supporters of Blake were forced to acknowledge that Owens had effectively seized the momentum in the court of public opinion. Adding to the chaos, Owens hinted at something much bigger behind the scenes. "I have receipts," she said ominously during a stream, "and I'm not afraid to use them if this goes further." That comment alone sent social media into a frenzy. Speculation exploded. What kind of information was she talking about? Could there be email screenshots? Was Blake's team worried? Legal analysts jumped into. Many noted that if Candace Owens did indeed have documentation that contradicted Blake's claims, the entire defamation suit could collapse or worse, boomerang. Some even began discussing the possibility of Owens countersuing under anti-SLAPP statutes, especially in states like California, where the law strongly favors protecting free speech in public controversies. At the same time, more YouTubers and journalists began aligning themselves with Owens, not necessarily because they supported everything she said, but because they viewed the legal aggression from Blake's camp as a chilling message. If they can come after Candace, one creator noted in a now viral video, they can come after any of us. This isn't just about her, this is about all of us who speak up. All the while, Blake Lively's silence only made things worse. Every day she refused to address the growing backlash publicly. The story seemed to spiral further out of her control. Her social media pages, once filled with glamorous photos and praise, were now flooded with critical comments demanding accountability, clarity, or both. Some fans even said they felt betrayed, accusing her of trying to silence women she once claimed to support. Blake's allies in the industry also began pulling back. Influencers who had previously collaborated with her brand ventures went quiet. A rumored magazine cover reportedly got delayed. A podcast appearance was quietly canceled. Even gossip columnists started asking the unthinkable: was Blake Lively's media image built on a carefully manufactured facade that was now starting to crack? Back on her platform, Candace Owens wasn't letting up. She released a 30-minute documentary-style expose titled "Hollywood's New War on Free Speech," weaving in her experience with the lawsuit and broader trends involving celebrities using legal threats to control narratives. The video racked up millions of views within days and became one of the most discussed uploads on the internet. By this point, what had started as a celebrity defamation case had evolved into a full-blown cultural firestorm. Candace Owens had effectively turned her defense into a larger battle cry, framing herself as not just a target of Blake Lively, but a stand-in for every creator, journalist, and commentator who had ever been told to watch their words. And in doing so, she was shifting the battlefield entirely. As the legal maneuverings continued behind closed doors, the public spectacle only intensified. Candace Owens, always adept at controlling her narrative, started releasing a series of video responses, each more detailed and provocative than the last. She walked her audience through the court filings, pointing out what she described as intellectual dishonesty and blatant censorship, disguised as defamation law. In a particularly bold move, she challenged Blake Lively's team to a live public debate on free speech and accountability, a challenge that unsurprisingly went unanswered. This calculated escalation pushed Owens' supporters into overdrive. Prominent conservative influencers rallied behind her, turning the lawsuit into a larger symbol of Hollywood's alleged hypocrisy and its struggle to silence critical voices. Owens wasn't just defending herself, she was now being portrayed as a champion of the First Amendment and for many a symbol of resistance against elite overreach. Blake Lively, meanwhile, seemed caught in a strategic deadlock. Her PR team, initially confident in their approach, began to show signs of uncertainty. The media coverage, once somewhat favorable to her, began to shift tone. Headlines questioned her judgment. Did Blake Lively overplay her hand? And Candace Owens' turns defense into dominance flooded the timeline. Entertainment law pundits, including several former federal prosecutors, began suggesting that the defamation claim was on shaky ground if it couldn't demonstrate actual malice, a notoriously difficult legal standard to prove. And then came the revelation that stunned even the most seasoned observers: leaked internal communications from a PR firm tied to Lively. ALLEGEDLY revealed concerns about the optics of the lawsuit. The leak, which remains unverified but widely circulated, included a damning line: "We may have underestimated her media machine. Whether real or not, the damage was done." It confirmed a growing narrative that Blake Lively's team had not anticipated the blowback and were now scrambling. Social media became a battleground. Owens' supporters posted clip after clip of her dismantling the defamation claims point by point, often accompanied by hashtags like #HollywoodHypocrites and #BlakeCan'tHide. On the other side, Lively's defenders attempted to shift the conversation toward the need for responsible discourse and the harms of misinformation. But the momentum was clearly not in their favor. By the time legal commentators began speculating that the case might be dismissed entirely, Owens had successfully reframed herself as the underdog who not only survived the attack, but turned it into a media triumph, and in doing so she widened the lens of the controversy, making it not just about her or Lively, but about a culture war playing out in real time. In the wake of what began as a defamation lawsuit, the public drama between Blake Lively and Candace Owens has transformed into something far more profound, a seismic moment in the ongoing battle between celebrity culture, free speech, and the influence of media figures. What was initially framed as a legal confrontation over reputation has morphed into a full-blown public relations war. And in that war, perception has proven to be just as powerful as any court ruling. Candace Owens' unapologetic response not only shifted the narrative, it rewrote the rules of engagement. Instead of retreating into silence or negotiating behind closed doors, she leaned into the storm. She utilized her media skills, audience reach, and command over public discourse to position herself not just as a defendant but as a symbol. In doing so, she expanded the scope of the battle, making it not just about herself but about what she described as a growing problem of elite silencing and selective accountability. Whether one agrees with her or not, it's undeniable that her strategy turned the tide in her favor. Blake Lively, on the other hand, appears to have stumbled into a far more complex arena than she anticipated. The move to file a defamation suit may have been driven by a desire to defend her public image or to send a message, but it backfired. The lawsuit opened her up to deeper scrutiny, not just of the specific claims Candace Owens made, but of her own actions, decisions, and alliances. As the case played out in the public eye, it became clear that her team had underestimated the backlash and failed to account for the scale of the cultural moment they had stepped into. This entire saga has also exposed the limitations of old Hollywood PR tactics. In an era defined by decentralized voices and instantaneous digital responses, gone are the days when publicists could control the media cycle with a single exclusive or red carpet appearance. Today, a single post, a reaction video, or a podcast episode can change the conversation within hours. Owens understood this landscape. Lively's team, it seems, did not. Perhaps the most telling aspect of this drama is what it says about the evolving power structures in media. Traditional celebrity no longer guarantees control. The rise of independent creators, commentators, and influencers, figures like Owens, has shifted the balance. When legal action is used against them, it doesn't always silence them. Sometimes it amplifies them, and in this case it amplified Owens to a level of visibility and influence that may have surpassed even her own expectations. In the end, regardless of how the case proceeds legally, the court of public opinion has rendered its own verdict, one that reflects a larger cultural reckoning with power, voice, and truth. If nothing else, the saga will be studied as a turning point in how reputation, influence, and justice intersect in the modern era. And it's safe to say neither Blake Lively nor Candace Owens will emerge unchanged.